Ted?
Excellent. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a terrific start to 2010, and I know there's nothing like a presentation first day back, so I appreciate everyone taking the time this morning. I know some of you, there's a lot of familiar faces, there's also some new faces, so if at any point anyone has any questions, please just let me know your name first, so that way we can get on that one-to-one basis. But I'm going to dive in and kind of give you a quick little overview of Nextmail. For some of you, parts of this might be familiar. For those of you, there's also some new applications I'm going to dive into at the end. As you know, as Chance just mentioned, we're really having a new push with Nextmail for 2010. Part of the real impetus there is we've had a lot of success closing out 2009. 2009 was one of the best years Nextmail's had. We've opened up a bunch of new verticals, and with the real reinvigoration of IDEN, Nextmail is a terrific application for you, first and foremost, because it's something that was built and controlled by you. It's officially a Sprint product. I'm just here to help support that. But in addition to that, it's a really sticky product that in this battle for churn and really keeping your customer base, Nextmail is really something that hopefully can provide that advantage to you guys. So I'm going to dive into Nextmail. Can everyone see me and hear me okay? All right. I look all right on camera?
You look great.
Okay, Agent doesn't even do this without signing a waiver, but this time I'll let it slide. So a little bit about Nextmail. Nextmail is just an enhancement to Direct Connect that allows a Direct Connect call to be received as an audio email. And our most enhanced feature, we can even include photos and GPS positioning with that as well. But when I'm really going to focus on two applications, and we have standard Nextmail and we have Nextmail Locator. Nextmail Locator includes photos and GPS. Standard Nextmail, you're really going to find most of the benefits for dispatch or many people, like a lot of people in the field calling into a few people in the office. That's really where standard Nextmail is going to be a fit. And George Trio and I actually have a meeting this afternoon with Transportation Concepts. They're going to start evaluating with 20 users for standard Nextmail. It's purely as a dispatch application. So as we turn that into a success story, I'll be able to kind of fill everyone in with that information. The other product, Nextmail Locator, which includes the photos and the GPS, that's our most enhanced product. That really you're going to find is more for field documentation, for proving where someone was, maybe a job was completed. So as we're kind of talking about this, bear in mind that there's really two distinct applications here that we're really kind of focusing on that can apply to a myriad of verticals. And as questions arise, please just feel free to fire away. So a little bit about Nextmail's fit. Well, one thing that you probably know better than I is that a Direct Connect call, one thing that's intrinsic to it is there's not the ability to prioritize the manner in which those calls are made. For example, with George and I in parking Transportation Concepts, they have 80 different vehicles calling into 3 dispatchers. Well, if the calls are always answered first in, first out, there's no way to prioritize. How as a dispatcher do you know that there's a more important call or more pressing call? Maybe there was an accident, maybe a customer has complained about a bill. Maybe there are technicians in front of that customer right there. Well, if there's 20 other people calling in with, I'm running behind, how do I get here, hey, I'm going to lunch, what happens is that worker that's in front of that customer gets pushed down into that call line. And so that can take sometimes, and this is with Transportation Concepts again, as much as 20 minutes for them to even get to that call. So now they have a worker that's not doing anything. He's just trying to get through. He's got his phone pressed up against his ear. Maybe he's driving, so now he's on the phone while mobile, which is not only illegal but dangerous. So with Nextmail, by using the same hardware that they have, any IDEN handset, and by making a Nextmail call, when that Nextmail audio email arrives, it's going to tell the recipient, the dispatch in this case, who's calling in, why they're calling in, so they can always handle that most time-sensitive call first. And I really equate that to what we all take for granted with our email every day. I certainly wake up, I have about 50 emails, thankfully it's the first of the year, so I only have about 4 today. But, and I'm sure everyone else has the same situation. Do we answer all those emails in sequential order? Not necessarily. We cherry pick emails from our boss, our biggest customers, and we look at that subject line to decide what's the most time sensitive and handle those in that order of importance. And simply put, Nextmail provides that exact same functionality with no new hardware, no new software, and no IT resources. So a little bit about Nextmail. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, has anyone in here never sent a Nextmail before or never seen one? Anyone? Okay, perfect. Well, now, so really the best way to kind of give you the flavor of Nextmail is to send one. So I'm going to send one to myself right now. And so as I mentioned, the calls come in that subject lines. It's going to explain the reason for the call. How do we do that? Well, when we set up the account, we ask that account representative, maybe the director of operations, maybe the leader of dispatch, what are the reasons these guys are calling in? So So back to this transportation example, it could be arriving on location, running behind, located at the staging area, mechanical issue, need assistance, customer complaint. Whatever the reasons that these guys are calling, we just put those as contacts into the phone. So now, instead of going to dispatch where all the calls come in at once and they're handled in the order that they received, I simply go on my contact list and find the reason for that call. So in the case of, let's say I was running behind and I wanted to give them an ETA status, I would scroll my contact list to ETA status, I press and hold the direct connect button, as soon as it chirps it's recording, and then I just speak my update. This is Justin C. I'm in vehicle 19, I'm about 15 minutes away from job 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll let you know the moment I arrive. I release the button, and as long as I hear those 2 or 3 confirmation beeps, I know my message was delivered, documented, and archived. Because that's one thing that if you think about, that in a busy dispatch area, if it's all direct connect calls, there's no record of who called in, when the call was received. Someone calls in, it's like when if you were to leave a voicemail for somebody, and you're like, hey, I looked at that voicemail, friend, did you get it? No, I never got it. Well, now there's no record at all. And Nextmail, using no new hardware, is going to have a date timestamp associated with this, and there's an archive log online. I'm just going to quickly switch to my desktop here, and hit send receive, just to give you guys an idea of how fast the message delivery you should expect with these, and how it's going to look when it arrives. So, a couple things if everyone can see at the top. I went to ETA status in my phone, which is why ETA status shows up in the subject line. So if I'm a dispatcher and I get 15 messages that come in at the same time, the one says running behind, ETA status, need immediate assistance, or heading in, well, which one do I want to handle first? Probably need immediate assistance, because that lets me know there's a guy in front of a customer and we are negatively affecting his productivity because he's just waiting around not doing anything. Now, at the end of this call, or at the end of this presentation, I'd like to talk about specific examples within your deck. But one of our biggest customers is Southern Wine and Spirits. And the biggest thing for them is that they would end up making a customer delivery, and let's say the customer ordered 20 cases of Budweiser, and they get there, now the customer only wants 10 cases of Budweiser, which happens all the time. Well, they cannot physically leave that customer location until their office has sent a new invoice that the customer signed and they've collected. Well, what that means is if they're calling in and they're the 50th call on that call line, it might take them 25, 30 minutes just to even let them know that I need this invoice sent over. Well, with Southern Wine and Spirits using Nextmail, now invoice issue comes across instead of ETA status, and it immediately allows them to prioritize that, send it over to the accounts payable, they send over the updated invoice, and instead of that driver waiting there for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, it takes him 2 minutes, he gets that invoice, and he's on to the next stop. Now, in terms of return on investment, what that means for Southern Wine and Spirits is, now instead of them, they have very specific slots where they're making these deliveries. So instead of one guy waiting at a spot for 30 minutes just to get a piece of paper signed, it now takes 2 minutes. He does not miss those other delivery windows, which means he does not have to make unique visits back later in the day, which means less gas money and less overtime, and he gets the truck back in the office faster. Now, using Nextmail for 1 month, they immediately realized the benefit and have started rolling out to all those other locations. And I look forward to discussing different opportunities with everyone here about how Nextmail can provide that fit. But so to get back to this message I just sent, we can also customize the from field. So I customize mine as Justin C. in vehicle 19 with my radio number. That way, obviously, if a dispatcher is looking at this, if they have 100 guys in the field, do you want to have them, when that message comes in, have to look up some other list to see what the number was for each guy? Or is it more advantageous to have their radio ID right there in the from field? So if I need to call them, I can immediately do that. When I double-click that link, or that email, it's going to pull up this link. And it's also important to bear in mind that these Nextmails can go to multiple email addresses. For example, this one, ETA status, would go to dispatch. What if a mechanical issue is one? Do we want the dispatcher bothered with that, or should that go right to the garage? And let the mechanics now prioritize how many people they need on call the next day. So we can customize where they go on a message-by-message basis.
I was Justin C. in vehicle 19. I'm about 15 minutes away from job 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll let you know the moment I arrive.
So real simple and straightforward, just like we spoke it. Now a couple different things.
How many emails do you have to do?
We can have to go, our standard distribution list is up to 50, but it can go to an internal distribution list. Like we work with a number of universities for their maintenance crews, and a lot of them are working in the middle of the night by themselves, and it might be a dangerous situation.